Okay, here today with Patrick Sommer, former captain of the U.S. Army, current franchise professional at Veterans Restoration. I'm gonna let Patrick introduce himself. Would love to get some highlights about your background, Patrick.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nick. Excited to be on. Yeah, like you said, served in the Army for 5 years, got out in 2013, worked for a couple different companies, and then have spent the last 8 years in the franchise industry. And then recently joined the team here at Veterans Restoration, which is, yeah, just a really exciting experience to be able to kind of bring my knowledge of the franchise industry and help veterans and veteran spouses get into business ownership through franchising.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's a lot of experience in that industry, and obviously, you spent some good time in the Army. What types of skills would you say you brought with you from your time in the Army to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I when I got out, had been stationed in Hawaii and was moving back to South Carolina. So the geographical transition made some things tough in terms of job interviews. I made one trip back there, and then I was back in Hawaii until I transitioned out. And for me, getting out, I just kind of had this assumption of like, well, I've been an officer, I've been a leader. I'm going to jump into some management role, and I'll just manage people and operations. And that's really all I thought. I'd been a field artillery officer, so there wasn't much uh, direct relatable skills to throw on a resume. And then I ended up kind of finding my way into a sales position and realized that there was a lot of soft skills that in the military it just comes naturally to you that you don't necessarily realize how they translate. For me, it was being able to work with people from a broad range of different backgrounds. That being in the military, you have lots of people from everywhere in the country, from different backgrounds that join. They join for different reasons, and being able to bring those people together for a team, accomplish a goal together requires the ability as a leader to understand all those people, learn how to motivate people. I found that kind of transferred well into a sales role and leading people in a professional aspect. And then the other big one I would say is just the work ethic. I saw that in my first sales role that I was in. That to me it was just a simple numbers game. Like, all right, well, train me how to do this, learn how to do it, and then I'm gonna work as hard as I can. Where I saw a lot of my counterparts that would hit certain metrics and what they were supposed to do for the day, and then it was putting their feet up, and come the end of the month or end of the quarter, they'd be like, "Oh man, like how'd you get there?" I'm like, "Well, I didn't just stop when I hit the bare minimum. I wanted to be the best." And I think that's a big thing that comes out of, at least for me personally, my experience in the military was always trying to be my best in whatever organization I was running. I think for me, one of the challenges, when I transitioned was, I was creating a resume for the first time, and I was trying to make a resume with bullet points, and those bullet points were in a foreign language to every HR person that was looking at that resume. I was putting in, that I led, X amount of people well deployed in Iraq, and as a logistics officer for the battalion, I was responsible for, $58 million worth of equipment. And for somebody in the civilian world, my opinion, I think sometimes it looked like I was overqualified. Or like, oh, well, this person has managed millions and millions of dollars of equipment and transferred that equipment across the world. We just want them to work for
Yeah,
this trucking company. And I thought I was doing the right thing by trying to like directly transfer data and metrics from my military experience. When, in hindsight, if I just focused more on what those more soft skills were, because I realized as I had different jobs in my professional career, that's what people saw and really valued in my experience, and being able to operate under pressure. That was a big thing that I saw, that I was working with people who were age wise my peers, but gone to college and just jumped into a professional career and hadn't dealt in many ways with adversity in their professional career. And when problems happened, it was panic mode where as a veteran, you're operating in that environment a lot, and it's really easy to keep your head calm and still drive on and accomplish whatever the task is.
Yeah. Were you able to network with anybody or find a mentor to help you make those translations a little bit easier?
I would say it took some time, and some of that was just the world unfolding differently than I expected. I took that first job when I got out, and it took me a while. It took me a lot of interviews and trying to figure out how do I make myself and this resume and this job application fit what these people are looking for. Finally found the job, and 9 months later, the company went bankrupt. It's like I went from the army where you always have a job. You might not be the best officer or soldier, but you got to be really bad for the army to fire you. And the army's not going
Right.
anywhere. So that was a really big learning experience for me. That hey, I can be doing great, but I really need to look at the organization that I'm a part of, and with that kind of the leadership. So worked for another company after that before I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I live now, and took my first job in franchising, and was very fortunate to have some really great leaders there that one identified what my strengths were and were able to also explain that to me to help me understand like, hey, this is some ways that you really stand apart from your peers, and these are some things that we really want to use that for. We want to challenge you to grow in that way, but also this is what you're lacking. This is where you need help. And I had a boss who's an avid reader, and it seemed like every week he was dropping another book on my desk, and I'm not a very fast reader, so I certainly couldn't keep up
Yeah.
with the amount of
Same.
information he was
Yeah, I
giving me.
can't do that.
But he was, I think very similar to my experience in the military. You have good leaders in the military, you have bad leaders, and I had the experience the same in the professional world. And for me, as I grew professionally, it was learning how to learn from both of those. You can learn a lot from having a bad leader, and when you have a great leader, somebody that wants to help you grow, take advantage of that. And that was a big thing for me at that point. And through different job transitions within the franchise industry, I've been able to kind of hold on to that of hey, what can I take out of this opportunity, because it could go away. And my first experience, the company went bankrupt. Of all right, well, if this disappears today, what can I get out of it to help me for whatever comes next?
Right. That's hard, man. That's you hit the nail on the head. You've got all this stability in the world with the U.S. government, the military, the army, and you go to this place and things are going well, and 9 months later, it's gone. That's tough.
Yep.
And yeah, that can happen to anybody. Anybody that's a civilian trying to get things done, they got to worry about that. That's tough. So having a good leader, being able to develop and lean on that leadership to figure out your strengths and weaknesses. It's awesome that you had that leader in your life at the time, because I think we all need that throughout the course of our lives.
Yeah, and I think one of the one of the things that I've seen is when I have had those good leaders, even if I've changed companies or roles, or they have, staying in touch with those people. I still have people that I worked with 5 years ago that I stay in touch with, that I think that isn't something that I did in the military. I think the military people are moving so much, it's easy to kind of lose track of your peers or your leaders in that world. And I think I had done that initially in my professional career, and then realized that, hey, that person went one direction, I went another, but I can still stay in touch with them. They can still help me grow. And then, in turn doing that, myself, of, helping to mentor people, whether we're working together in a professional capacity currently, or that's ended. There's still big opportunities to network and learn and grow from other people. That I think that is another thing that just took me a while to kind of learn, and how much I can pull out of my network as a resource.
Yeah, it was tough to stay in touch with the guys that I served with in the Navy. I I'm on Facebook with a lot of them still, and like you said, we've all kind of gone our separate ways. But yeah, that's a big lesson, making sure that you're staying in touch with the people that have made an impact on your life and your career, because you can always go to them and see how they're doing, and vice versa. I think that's very enriching as you continue to progress, and that's part of the reason this program exists. I want to be able to create a network for veterans to be able to come together and bounce ideas off of each other. And there's so many awesome network and veteran resources out there to be able to do that. You mentioned that you enjoy being a mentor. Are you currently mentoring anyone right now in a capacity? Are you looking for people to mentor? Or are you open to that right now?
Yeah, I'm definitely open to it. I would say in a not in any sort of organized capacity. Am I doing that currently? But I think
Sure.
one of the things that I really have loved about this franchise industry, that it's a really unique space. Before, going back to the network, I was working a job that I didn't really enjoy, and a former colleague from that first company I worked for called me one day and said, "Hey, I'm working for this company in Charlotte. It's an automotive franchise company. I want your help." And I knew nothing about franchising, but jumping into it, it was just really unique compared to what my experience had been with other larger companies. That company I worked for at the time, they owned Mako, Meineke, CarStar, Take Five Oil, huge franchise brands, but it's all built on small business owners. So it's just a much different feel. And there's a kind of natural network and mentoring that happens within that. That you have these brand new people come in, and they might be coming in from the military, they might be coming in from corporate America, and they want to start their own business. And the benefit for them, outside of the corporate support that they get by buying into the system, they also have all their peers of other owners. And that's where I've seen, in my experience, owners do really well in this model, that they say, "Hey, I'm just launching whatever this franchise is in my market, but there's this guy in Colorado who's the number one franchise in the entire system. I want to call him. I want to figure out what he's doing." So I've really enjoyed that, of bringing people together. I've worked for and brought kind of a model into some of the franchises that I've worked for, of having that mentorship, that, hey, all the new franchise owners should have access to these people that have been running their business for 5 or 10 years, learn what they're doing right, what they've done wrong, what they would have gone back and done in year one. So it really gives people an opportunity to grow. And my role currently with veterans restoration is bringing in new franchise owners. So I tell them, like, "Hey, I can connect you with owners that are in a completely different industry that I've worked with in automotive, or other home services. And if you just want to connect with somebody in your market or in a different market, you're all having a very similar experience of becoming a first time business owner." So being able to see that, facilitate that, is something that I really enjoy. And specific to veterans, veterans fit really well in the franchise space also. That it took me a while to draw these parallels, but you sign your franchise agreement, same as you sign your paperwork to join whatever branch of service. Then you go to initial training, you learn how to do everything, and then you're given all these operations manuals and SOPs of how to run it. And then you got to go out and execute with this support behind you. So seeing veterans specifically in that, I think there's a lot of great opportunities in that world. And I really enjoy that part of people being able to start their own business, but having support and mentors around them to help them grow.
Yeah, it's awesome to have that network within the franchise industry and all that experience within other types of franchises, so that when you're talking to somebody, you can get a better feel for what kind of fit they might have, whether or not they're good for your current your the company that you're representing, or if they might be a better fit for some other type of business.
Yeah. And I think, the last job that I had prior to getting into franchising, they had national sales team. I had a region of the country, and there wasn't, a competition between salespeople that like, hey, you're going to get one of my customers. We all had our own region, but also, nobody really cared how somebody else did. How the guy in California did or New York did had no effect on me in North Carolina. So there wasn't any, inherent desire to say like, oh, I want everybody to do better. We're all just operating, on our own little island. Where
Yeah.
with franchising, there is that idea like, hey, I have my own business in North Carolina, but if everybody across the country is doing better, now we're going to be, a household name, and now we're going to be, the Chick-fil-A, and everybody's going to know who we are. So you get a lot more natural desire for people to want to help each other, and that's just an atmosphere that I really enjoy being around in a professional sense. That everybody wants to see each other grow.
That's awesome. That's important, and to be able to have a network of people that you can call and find out what's working, what's not working, be able to grow together. And I know I've looked into franchising before, and just being able to call different franchisees that are in the industry to see what their journey was like was super helpful. Just to be able to make a decision, yes or no, is this the right fit for me at this point in my life? Yeah, and so tell me a little bit more about the current role, and a little bit more about veterans restoration and what that is, and what your mission is at this point.
Yeah. So yeah, going back to just networking and finding people to talk to, something that I didn't do and didn't know how to do when I first got out, but that's how I ended up here. So our founder is another Army veteran, Adam Weaver. He got out, got his degree, got his master's degree, was working for another restoration company, and then went out and wanted to start his own. So he launched Veterans Restoration about 3 years ago. A few months ago is when he went through the formal legal process of creating the business into a franchise. He popped up on my LinkedIn one day, and I just reached out to him and said, hey, it looks like you're about to jump into this. I'm a veteran as well. I've been in the franchise space. I've specifically have worked for one of the largest restoration franchises in the country. If you got any questions, thoughts, concerns about what you're about to dive into, I'm happy to help out. And one call turned into another call, turned into a couple hour long call to hey, let's work on this together. That just reaching out to people, and I might have continued working for another job, and still would have been happy to just help him, but really loved his story. The drive that he had to and risk to just say, hey, I can see how I can do this on my level, and launched in Maryland and grew very quickly there. As our corporate location there is operating in 4 states now.
Wow.
And then from there, very quickly to say, hey, I want to extend this opportunity to other people. I want to give people a chance to experience the life change that I've had, going from just an employee somewhere to now I'm a business owner. I'm making more money than I would as an employee. I own this as an asset. And then also helping other veterans, because I think that's like me when I got out. It's not something veterans think about. I was very focused on, well, I've been a platoon leader. I was an executive officer. I was a logistics officer. I'm going to go find a job where I manage people in some sort of logistics capacity. Never would have thought, I would get into sales. Never would have thought I would have gotten into, where I'm at today in franchising. So helping people realize that this is an opportunity out there. Like I said, I think franchising for its structure fits really well with veterans, but the opportunity here with veterans restoration, I think, also fits really well. And I saw this with the other company that I work for, that we're going in, we're doing property restoration. So water damage, mold, fire, smoke, biohazard. From a business standpoint, I love this industry. It's not going anywhere. I
Yeah.
was working for a restaurant franchise when COVID hit, and very quickly realized I didn't have anything to do for my job. Nobody wanted to buy and invest $100,000, $500,000 into opening a restaurant during COVID. And everybody in the franchise industry was trying to say like, oh, our business is recession resistant. Everybody needs this, everybody needs that. There are some that I would say are, and restoration is definitely one of them. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. It doesn't matter what the economy is. If a pipe bursts in your house and you have water dripping down your ceiling and down your walls, you're going to get it fixed. And most people, fortunately, have insurance to cover that. So it's a service that's always in need. But for veterans, it's also that component of serving your community. We're not just setting up a Subway restaurant where people can go get a sandwich, or cleaning people's homes, or doing other services. That there's a demand for those things, but in restoration, you're going in and you're helping somebody in a time of crisis. For some people,
Right.
this can be a really big life event. They save their whole life up to that point to buy a house, and all of a sudden they have a fire, they have a flood in their house. It's a very emotional event for people, and going in, and I think as veterans, again, being able to handle crisis situations and going in calmly, being able to use the tools and training that we provide to help restore that person's home. There's great money to be made, but it's also something you can be really proud of. That you can go in and you're helping people within your community during a time of need, and that can be everyday things. Like in my home, my daughters were running the tub and weren't in the bathroom and left it running, and we had a piece of our tub that we found out wasn't working properly, and all of a sudden
Wow.
there's water everywhere.
Oh my goodness.
So you have those day-to-day occurrences that are frustrating. It wasn't, we had to have people come to our house from a restoration company for a few days to get it fixed. But then when you look at wildfires and hurricanes and floods and all these disasters that impact a whole community, that's where, to me, it really comes in more that we can really come in and help people and serve our community, which I think most veterans have a natural draw to. Like I said in the beginning, everybody joined the Army for a different reason, but somewhere in part of that reason was serving and giving back, and this business gives you both of those opportunities.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this during our last conversation that this is an ideal type of business to be in when you're flexible and you're open to serving during some really weird times. You mentioned Subway. You know that the rush is coming at lunchtime and maybe dinner time, maybe breakfast. That's not how restoration works. That's not how disasters work. Oh, it's lunchtime. I'm waiting for the call for a bunch of disasters. It's probably not going to happen at lunchtime.
Yeah, no, yeah, they had actually, the last restoration company I worked for had some data on it that it's usually, most calls will come in first thing in the morning because somebody wakes up, they walk downstairs and there's an inch of water on the floor, or
Oh
you know
man.
5 o'clock in the afternoon. People are coming home from work, kids are getting home from school. You walk in and the tube that goes to the washing machine shook loose when everybody was out of the house, and now you have water damage. So it happens every day in homes all across the country. It happens at all hours, which for some people that's not the right fit. Some people want hey, I want a business that I know the doors open at this time and the doors close at this time. Restoration is different, which I'm the first one to say there's no perfect franchise out there. It's all about what's right for the individual. But with this, if you're that type of person that you're willing to pick up that phone call and go out at 10 o'clock at night to help someone, that business is going to go to the people that are quick to react or quick to get out there, can get their teams moving. And there's also a wide variety in what we do. That it's not just making the same sandwich every day. You're not. I work for a home cleaning company, which those owners loved because it was just a very simple business. You go and you clean the house, your team goes to the next house, and repeat that. With this, water damage, fire, mold, biohazard, they're all very different. And then there's also big opportunities where, when I had that damage in my home, they were finishing up on the last day. They were doing all the moisture readings that, hey, everything's dried out. And the team had come a little bit earlier, and it was a Friday. And I asked them, I'm like, oh, well, you guys just trying to get your weekend started early?" And said, "No, we're going to Asheville for a job after this, so we wanted to get done here quickly." Asheville's about 2 hours away from me. I can't believe you guys are going all the way there. And they said, "Well, it's a $60,000 job." And so there's huge opportunities out there. So I think for the people that are willing to work and hustle, you can grow and scale this business very quickly if you're that type of person, which I think is exciting. And I tell everybody, I've seen owners that were extremely successful in their automotive business that would have been horrible at running a restaurant. People that were great at running a restaurant, they would hate restoration. So it's if you are interested in franchising, I'm always happy to talk to anybody about what they think would fit well. And for the people that fit for this, it's a great opportunity. And just looking at our founder going from starting his own to now doing over $2 million in sales in Maryland, and now we're ready to grow across the country. If you want to hustle, there's disasters every day.
That's the quote of the day. If you want to hustle, there's disasters every day. I love that. And this reminds me of auto collision repair,
Yeah.
because that's another insurance funded solution for people that need to fix their cars, and they're going to get their cars fixed. But I know I've talked to some people in the auto collision industry, and they're nervous. They're nervous about automated vehicles. They're nervous about how their business is going to start to dwindle because they don't think they're going to have as much work in the future. I don't think there's going to be anything that's automating these disasters from not happening in homes or
No,
buildings.
yeah, and that's where, to me, and again, people working in other franchises can make their argument, but I would say restoration is, if not the safest, one of the safest. There's no right now. There's no AI robot that's going to show up at your house and utilize all this equipment and do moisture readings and replace drywall and rebuild your house. It's a physical job. We use a lot of equipment, but to the point you made of insurance, I think that's another big thing too. That we're not in a business, and this happens in a lot of other home services that I've seen. We're never competing over price. The pricing for restoration is set by a software that the insurance companies use. So if you're doing roofing, you might go meet a customer, you spend a whole day with them, you give them a quote, you say it's 15 grand, I can give you a new roof. They take that quote, they call another company, and that company says, "I'll do it for 12 grand." You just lost that job. For us, all the pricing is flat, so it's really just more about service. That insurance company is going to use the restoration company that they know is going to pick up the phone and they know is going to take care of their customer. Because that's ultimately what they want. They want their customer's home to be fixed and their customer to be happy. And the other benefit to that is this isn't coming out of the homeowner's pocket. It's not like you show up to somebody's house and their home is damaged, their property is damaged, they've lost belongings that can't be replaced, and then you're saying, "Here's a bill for $60,000." They don't have to deal with that. You're working with the insurance company on whatever the reimbursement is for that work. So you don't have to deal with that part where, there are some similarities to the auto industry. But I would say vehicles are changing. Homes aren't. Homes are still a structure. You can't
Right.
automate a house.
No, you can make better materials. You can make better, I guess, fixtures and plumbing. You can make sure. I mean, you could do the best you can to make sure everything is done right, but there's still going to be accidents. There's still going to be problems that happen. There's no way to perfectly do anything and make it indestructible. It's impossible.
For sure. And
Yeah.
natural disasters.
Right.
Those aren't going to stop.
You can't stop that. So, well, we're right up on time here. There was a couple quick things that I wanted to make sure we got to. Obviously, this is a newer endeavor for you, so I could see that your current situation, current goals are probably as far as you can see. But tell me, how far can you see into the future? How far can you see into the horizon when it comes to what you've set your sights on? What types of goals are you trying to accomplish in the future here?
Yeah, and I think for me here, having the opportunity to join Adam really right at the launch of this is really exciting for me because it's long term. Where I've joined other franchises that were already established, and it's like, all right, well, there's only so much left, to open. 75% of the country already has people operating, so there's a really long runway here. For both of us, our goal is to expand veterans restoration across the country, and in doing that, help as many as we people as we can launch and grow their own successful business. Adam also owns another company that will be franchising shortly. So one, for us having two brands that we can grow, and also for our future owners, they can choose to enter into that one as well. Some probably will, some won't. So being able to scale that, and looking at what that will be over the next 5-10 years is really exciting. I've seen and been a part of established franchises, and that's amazing to be around. But to be there from day one is really exciting. And then for me personally, getting into some different types of ownership myself. I'm very busy with this role, and I think we might have talked about it on a call. I always have people ask me like, "Well, why don't you own this franchise?" I'm like, "Well, if I owned it, I'd probably be putting all my time into that and not, what I'm hired to do." But I have some opportunities that I'm looking at with veterans, and then I also have seen a lot of friends, and I'm learning about it too, and we talked about it on a separate call. But looking at the Airbnb and rental property market, I think there's some really interesting things happening there that's exciting for me to look at. I've seen friends who are veterans that made much better decisions with their housing allowance and things like that, and bought properties that they now have 2 or 3 rental properties that I did not do that with my housing allowance when I was in Hawaii, which I had a fun time in the house that I rented there, but nothing to
So
say for it.
jealous, so jealous of those people that make good decisions, right?
Yeah,
They are they're just going to continue to build their empire. That makes sense though, and along those lines, you mentioned that they asked that question about if this business is so great, why don't you do it? Well, it kind of reminds me like if you needed a recruiter to help you get a job, and the recruiter was helping you get that job, you wouldn't ask that recruiter, well, why don't you go do that job?
yeah,
Well, my job's to be a recruiter. My job's to help you get a job. So my job is
exactly.
to help you get a business, and that's where I want to focus my time. So no, that's great stuff, man. Last question: if you were to go back in time, give yourself some advice to a younger version of who you are, where would you go, and what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, and if I could, going back to my transition and what I know now about having and how to build a network, that would have been the biggest thing. That for me, I was just very, I would say, almost narrow minded in my thinking. That I'm like, well, I'm stationed in Hawaii. I'm surrounded only by people in the Army, and I remember I had a battalion commander when I was getting out. He was like, "Oh, if you need any help, getting ready for interviews, let me know." And in my head, I was like, "Well, you've never interviewed for a job. Like you're battalion commander in the Army. You've done well, but you've never interviewed." And I just didn't think to or know how to start reaching out and building a network that I think that would have opened up one immediately other opportunities for me, where I was just going in and just applying for jobs that I saw instead of finding people that really could help me make more connections. And then also, having people that could mentor me, finding people that maybe I just didn't know at all that had been in my position 2 years prior. Should have just reached out to like, hey, this person who I don't know looks like they got out 2 years ago and they're in this role. How did they get there? What did they do? It wasn't something that that I thought about at the time. That, yeah, in hindsight and looking at what I do now professionally within my network, that probably would have landed me in a completely different place during that transition than what I, just kind of struggled through on my own.
Yeah, we can always learn things the hard way, but somebody else already has. And
Yeah,
if we can find out what those hard lessons were, then hopefully we can make our transition a little bit easier. So I agree with you 100%, man. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation, and I look forward to hearing all the updates as you continue to help build this company and do great things within your personal real estate and building the family. So definitely keep me posted on how all that's going. But reach out to Patrick if you have questions about franchising, if you have questions about the transition process. I know you're going to be there to take care of people. So
yeah, absolutely. Always happy to talk with anybody, wherever they are in their transition or where they're at in their professional career currently.
perfect. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Patrick.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.